Dallas.
Hey everybody, Larry, Fort Worth Memories Museum, and all of our groups. It's Tuesday, it's 10 a.m., Rick and Mary, Hometown Heroes, and we got a very special guest this morning. Y'all got the show?
Thank you, Larry. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning.
We do have a special guest, don't we?
We certainly do.
And tell us about our friend here.
You know, Bill is one of our older World War II veterans, Bill McIntyre, and Bill just celebrated his 103rd birthday.
On July the 12th.
And this past Thursday, when they had the lunch on base that they always invite the folks that have base access to, he was taken out to the base along with a couple of other vets, and there was quite a crowd. We get quite a crowd of roll call vets at that lunch the skipper invites them to at the Navy Galley. And they celebrated his birthday once again after he cut the cake in April. Remember cutting that great big cake at the April lunch?
With that saber.
I've cut the cake twice out there at the base.
You have.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have that in April. His birthday's in July. We don't have a meeting, a roll call luncheon in
Right.
July. So we start celebrating your birthday in April. Because
Yeah.
then we do it again in June.
Because we kept missing it, and we didn't realize that we were missing it. And all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, somebody said, you know, we never celebrate Bill's birthday, and Bill is special to us, and you're going to learn why Bill is extremely special to us. But he's very special to us at roll call, and we kept missing his birthday because we didn't do a luncheon. And so we were like, oh, who's going to cut the cake at the big thing at the base?
Yeah.
Well, who better than Bill,
Bill McIntyre.
who is the biggest reason that we happen to do our lunches at Birchman Baptist Church.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was 22 years old when that base was established.
Were you really?
I was 22. I was in North Africa at the time.
Okay.
And I understand we were getting the Blue Angels at the base.
Next April, I think, isn't it? Is
Yeah,
it
it's
April?
coming up.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be great for the base.
Oh, I think
Sure
so
will.
too.
Yeah.
And you know, Skipper, Captain McLean, he is such a great supporter of our veterans.
He is
I
huge.
mean,
Yes, he
Huge
is.
supporter.
And really, you know, I'm around you a lot at different places with a lot of those officers like Captain McLean and General Ratcliffe and Alan Duckworth. And I mean, they just, you know, they just focus in on our veterans.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
And we appreciate that.
Yep.
Well, Bill, you're from Oklahoma City,
Yes, sir.
born in 1920, correct?
Right.
On Main Street?
On Main Street. I wasn't in a hospital. I was born in a house.
Okay.
And I grew up there, went to grade school, horseman, and in Classen High School. I graduated from there. It was about 1940. And I run on the track team there.
Did you really?
In fact, I got a letter from my coach. He moved to Colorado Springs, and he wrote me a letter. And he said, Bill, he says, I can get a, what do you call it? Anyway, he could get me to come out there to school, and
A scholarship?
huh?
A scholarship?
Yeah, scholarship. And I'd have to pay some of my way, but he told me in the letter, send my grades, and he says, I'll get you in. I'll get you on the track team. He was the physical professor there. Well, I had to turn him down because I didn't have enough money to go. I went to Washington, D.C.
What'd you do there?
I was in the Social Security Board,
Okay.
and so I worked there till Pearl Harbor. On Pearl Harbor Day, December the 7th, 1941, I was in the theater there in downtown Washington, D.C. And when I got out of the theater, in fact, the movie was, and when I walked out there, the newspaper boys were hollering that we'd been bombed by the Japanese in Pearl Harbor.
Now, how old were you?
I was.
I was
that
21.
That was December. I guess I was
Probably-
21.
Probably 21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you get a job with the Social Security? How'd you do that?
Well, I sent them an application, and they sent me a telegram back and said you've been accepted. I was only making $100 a week.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Did you? I guess you took the train up there.
Yes, yes. Well, no, my parents, I went with them.
Okay.
But I lived on 14th Street. And that wasn't too far from where the ambassadors lived. But anyway, after Pearl Harbor, I guess I stayed up there about a year. Then the draft board knocked on my door.
Yeah, you had a brother. Didn't you? How many siblings did you have?
Well, yeah. My brother was Gene. He was 2 years younger than me. Well, back in Oklahoma City, when the war broke out, we had a base there, the Navy base. And my brother said, Bill says, I'm going to join the Navy. And he says, I want you to enlist with me. And I said, Gene, I says, I get seasick. And I don't want to enlist. And so my brother went ahead and enlisted, and he was at the base. And what happened when I was drafted from Washington, D.C., my papers went back to Oklahoma City, and then I went to the Fort Sill artillery base there in Oklahoma City. And so I took my examinations, and they asked me, where do you want to go? I said, I want to go to Indianapolis, Indiana. That was in the finance. And so they shipped me out to Indianapolis, and I took my basic training. That was in December. There was snow on the ground there in Indianapolis.
Sure.
It was really cold.
Yeah.
And so I did all the marching, and we had a movie actor. We had to get it in a parade. What was that lady's name? Dr. Kildare. Remember the doctor?
Dr.
Oh.
Kill.
He's in the wheelchair. He's a famous. He was in the TV. Anyway, I went to finance school there, and then there was 42 of us fellows shipped out to the Brooklyn shipyards, and I didn't know where I was going. But they put me on a ship.
And at this time, were you in the Army or the Army Air Corps?
No,
You just-
strictly the Army.
Okay, strictly the Army, okay,
Right. That changed later.
okay.
But, I stayed on that ship 15 days,
Did you get seasick?
and I got seasick.
I'll bet you did.
My brother was still in Norman, and he hadn't even seen a ship or the water, and I was getting seasick.
Oh.
Did you tell him you got seasick before he got seasick, huh?
Right. Well, his story, he eventually was assigned to the Intrepid aircraft carrier, and he went all the way to Japan.
Hmm.
I was there, I was almost coming home when he was on that way.
Wow.
but I landed. We zigzagged all over the Atlantic Ocean. There was a lot of us troop ships, and we turned into the Mediterranean River there, south of Spain, and we landed there at Oran, North Africa. So it finally occurred to me I wasn't going to England. At that time, they were shipping the troops to England. And I was put in a depot there. I guess it was about 20 big tents. We slept on the ground there. And I've got another story I can tell you that I found out that France, you know, at that time Germany had occupied Paris. Well, the French had the Foreign Legion, French Foreign Legion. And I found out about it. When I was growing up in high school, I read the books about the Foreign Legion. And when I found out that their Foreign Legion headquarters was, I guess, about 20 or 25 miles from where I was. So on the weekend, me and a bunch of those guys, we got in the command car, and we drove to the city of Bel Abbas, and most of the guys I went with, we separated. Well, I went and found the headquarters for the Foreign Legion. So I walked up to that gate, and you know, they have nothing but convicts there that did the battles there for France. Well, I went up there to that gate. A big master sergeant come out and met me, and I told him I wanted to come in and see their headquarters and talk to them about their battles and so forth. He says that will be fine. And so we were walking in there, going to the museum. I said, how do you teach these guys with these different foreign languages? And he says, hut 1, 2, 3, 4. Hut 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's the way we teach them.
Yeah, not a lot to it.
Did they
March
give
and shoot.
they didn't give you an application to join, did they? Huh?
No, but they were really good to me. They took me into the museum. They had beautiful pictures of their battles. They had some terrible battles. They had all their guns and ammunitions and everything there. Well, I stayed quite a while trying to get it. In fact, I bought a book that explained all their museum. It's all in French, and I still have it.
Do you really?
Wow,
Yeah,
that's quite a treasure.
right. Well, I tried to learn as much as I could, and you know those guys wore the caps with the white down here. I said, I'm going to go into the city of Belle Abbas and downtown and see if I can find any of those guys and talk to them. And I went to several of the bars, and my other guys, I don't know where they went, but to make the story short, it was nearly 8 o'clock that night. I had been visiting with all these guys, and they went off and left me. And when I walked out of that bar, I didn't know how to get back to my base.
Oh my gosh.
I was going to be AWOL.
Yep.
And so I walked around the city of Belle Abbas there, and I finally found the train station. And I tried to find out the best I could because I couldn't understand French. And well, I finally found a fellow there in the station. And I asked, is there a train going back to Oran, where I'm based? He said, we don't have a train or a passenger train. We got a freight train coming through here. So that freight train finally come in. It was empty cars. It didn't have the frames like regular trains. When that train come in, I got on it. And
Took the freight train back to your base.
that's right.
So you weren't AWOL.
You made it back in time?
Oh.
And so, how am I going to find out how to get off at my base at Oran? It's pitch black. I had Arabs were sitting up there in their sheets, and I finally figured out that there would be some lights around the base. And so when I saw those lights, I jumped off the train.
I'll be darned.
Good story.
Isn't that something?
Was the war still going on in North Africa at that time, or?
Yeah, General Patton was coming up from Egypt, and we were coming from Africa to meet him. First Division was up there. Some of the First Division guys were coming back to Algiers. But anyway, I got back to my base, and they put me on a train with 42 of our finance guys and shipped me to Algiers. I was still in the Army. And when I got there, they divided us up. They took our records, and we had groups, airplane groups, and these guys they did the payrolls, what we did in finance. And well, they kept me there at headquarters. and they gave me a terrible job. They give me the job of handling the casualties of the 12th Air Force. We were flying out of Corsica and Algiers into Romania. And at the refineries there, Hitler was getting the gasoline. So the Air Force knew all that, and we were bombing the heck out of them. So I got all this paperwork. When a pilot went down, if his buddy was flying close to him, it was his job to, when he got back to the base, to write up the report and describe what happened. If that pilot got crashed and killed, or he would have to explain it. Well, I got to see those papers, and General Marshall in Washington, D.C., he advised us, all of us in the European theater operations, that he says, this paperwork has got to get back to the United States. We've got to notify the beneficiaries. At that time, the beneficiaries got $10,000 if their son got killed or missed in action. So that was my job the whole time I was there.
Because there was thousands of pilots and crew that got killed. There were thousands of them, weren't there?
Well, I kept a little card, a record of each one. And I had these here cards, I guess, an index in files. I guess I've got a picture at home of it I took. But it kept me working night and day. I finally worked up to be a staff sergeant there. I went in there as a private, and I got the Bronze Star. And when the war was over there, I didn't have enough points to get out. So my colonel, he said, Bill, says, I'm going to get you back to the States. He says, I found a job in the War Department for you. And let me back up a little. There in Algiers, we were bombed every day, and had to be careful there. And I guess I stayed a year there in Algiers, and then we had a lot of equipment, jeeps and command cars, and I was the unlucky one. My colonel said, Bill, you're gonna have to go with all our equipment to Naples, Italy. And so they put me on a Liberty ship. And I got seasick again.
I was gonna say another ship. So this is Bill. This was when you became part of the Army Air Corps.
Yeah, that's when I was in the Army Air Corps.
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting. And you were there really at the time before we became the Air Force.
Well, we were called the Mediterranean Theater of Operations.
Uh-huh.
And 12th Air Force was moving out too. But Patton was right up there.
Did you ever meet him? Nope.
No,
Never got to meet him.
I was behind, when I was in my Liberty ship, they pulled in, what's the name? That's the island that's south of Naples, Italy,
Sicily?
Sicily. I can't think of these names. We docked in there.
I'm a good Italian.
Yeah.
I have relatives that came from Naples. My great grandparents on one side came from Naples, Italy.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. You were asking about the cameras, and this is going around the world.
Well, it is.
It is, and we have one of our members lives in the Czech Republic, and she said, "Sir, thank you for your service, sending greetings from the Czech Republic." So they're watching you over in Europe.
Well, hello.
Hey, Bill, what was it like when you got those reports? When you read those reports, what was that like? How did that affect you?
Well, they described what their buddy did when he got shot down. They just described it. But it was terrible. I didn't like that job. And, but I had to get it done. I had a brigadier general sit there at my desk. He said, "Bill, you've got to get those reports in." And we were getting them in. And it was a lot of paperwork to get that done.
Because that was to ensure the family got the death benefits, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
General Marshall, he says we got to keep the morale of the people back in the States up. We got to get that paperwork and the money to them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I don't think we think about that in terms of not only were you notifying the next of kin, but you were trying to keep that morale. I don't think that I've ever heard anybody put it that way, right? That you've got to keep the morale up. You got to keep the people at home understanding that if, God forbid, they lost a son or a father, a husband in war, that they would get compensated. And I think that that's an important thing we don't often hear about.
Yeah. Well, all through Europe, we had certain people that were designated to do that. And I was one of them that had to do it. And I was glad to do it. Because we were running out of soldiers there in Italy. And the generals wanted more soldiers. They radioed back to General Eisenhower, and they said, "General, we've got to have more troops here." We were only about 10 minutes from the German lines where we were there at Naples. And General Marshall said, or General Eisenhower said, "You're not going to get any more troops. We don't have them." What they did here in Italy and the rear echelons, they went to the commanders, and the generals said, "You got to give us so many men out of each department." And I saw them go into, they gave them a rifle. I guess it was about 50. They walked right down the street there with us. And what we did, we made an end run to that, or how that Naples is situated in the island. We went around that and made a landing there, and that was Anzio. That was south of Rome, and I've been there. And by doing that, we took Rome June the 6th, 1944. A lot of people don't know that. But we took it. I got to see the Catholic Church there. I was blessed by Pope Pio XII.
Wow. Wow. Went to the Vatican. I haven't even done that. Oh my goodness. I'm a good Catholic girl. I'd love to go to the Vatican.
Yeah. Well, it was beautiful inside. And you'll have to come over to my house. I got pictures. I've been up on the top of it.
Yeah.
And let's see what else. I got up as far as Venice and went all through Venice there.
You got to see a volcano erupt too, didn't you?
What?
A volcano?
Oh yeah, yeah. There in Naples, Mount Vesuvius exploded. I watched it there from where I was, on top of the Bay of Naples. It has never exploded. It's still light. But when it went off, the Italians, they broke out their umbrellas, and that
Ash? All
Ash.
the ash was coming down?
yeah, and that covered up Pompeii.
Wow.
I was there at Pompeii too. But Naples, I understand, is not as well thought of as Rome is now.
Oh, true.
Have you been back to Naples or North Africa since you left?
Well, I've been back to Sicily and Rome,
Okay.
and General Patton was up there not far from where I was at. He told the British general they were getting ready to invade Sicily. General Patton says, I'm going to beat the British Army to Palermo. That's clear over here on the west side of Sicily. And, well, General Patton did. He got in there before the British Army did. I've been all across Sicily. Sicily's got another volcano, Mount Etna, over here on the east side. And it's beautiful country, mountains all the way to Palermo. So, what else?
Whenever you were in Naples, is that when you left to come back to the United States? Did you come back from Naples, or were you working up in Rome?
Well, the colonel, he found me a job, so he cut orders. Well, when I went to the base, there was 11 B-17s waiting for us, and I happened to be put on one of the B-17s, and I was thrilled that I was going to get to fly.
Hey, yeah, you weren't going to get seasick. Did you get motion sick?
Yeah, I didn't want to get seasick again.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, on that B-17, when we took off, we were in the middle of the pack. And the captain was flying the plane, and down the middle of the runway, the rear tire blew out.
Oh,
Boy, that thing dropped down. But that captain, he pulled that plane up, that B-17, and we had other B-11s right behind us, you know. And he pulled that thing up like that, and he got it all up in the air. And he come back. He got out of his cockpit, and he says, "Boys," he says, "that was the third tire to blow out on me."
oh my.
And he says, "Don't worry," he says, "we'll make it." Says, I radioed Casablanca, and they said, "Don't land this B-17 on the concrete." He says, "We want it on the dirt." So we had 8 hours flying time then from Naples into Casablanca. And so we sweated that out. So he told us, he says, I'm going to, when I touch down that land, he says, I'm going to lose all my landing speed. I'm going to pull that tail up as long as I can. And we had fire departments and the ambulance, they were racing right down the side of us. And that captain, he done a good job. But
He was experienced. The third time he was experienced at landing without that wheel.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, we felt better about that.
Oh my. Can't imagine.
When that tail hit the ground, it swerved us around and when we come to a stop. And every one of us walked away.
Shoo!
And that was in Casablanca.
That was the Casablanca.
You didn't go to Rick's Cabaret or whatever it is from that movie, did you? Did you go to the Rick's that was in the movie?
Movie, yeah. I should have stopped over there. Everybody wants to go to Casablanca now.
Yeah. So whenever you were in Naples, you weren't too far from the front, were you?
No, we just 10 minutes flying time.
Yeah.
The Germans were dropping flares in the evenings at nighttime over the Bay of Naples there and bombing us.
So you were still in an area where you were getting bombed.
Right. Where our finance was in a building we took over from the Italians. Well, I slept with my clothes on, my shoes. We had to run every night with the bomb. We went to a place where we could get under cover. And one evening, the Italians, when the Germans started bombing there, they went crazy.
Have a party?
They run down the streets screaming, and that one night I counted the bombs. I could hear them hitting. 1, 2, 3, 4. When I got out of there the next morning, we had the wax girls were across the street, and they were in about a 10-story building. Well, that one bomb just went right down there and took out everything, and I could see all of their furniture on each level.
They weren't in there, were they? They had evacuated?
Yeah, we would lose 4 or 5 personnel every night.
My goodness.
Jeez.
And we had a motor pool next to us. Well, one of those bombs didn't go off. But at the back of this motor pool was a big concrete stone wall. Well, this bomb hit in the side of that wall, and it left the imprint of that. That was a 500-pound bomb, and it fell down and did not go off, but it left the imprint of that bomb in there.
Wow.
But every night we would lose personnel. That was the first thing they told me when I got to Naples. The other guys that were already there, they said, you won't stay out when we get bombed by the Germans, when they drop these flares. But I stayed up that first night to see it, and the next night I got away from it. But, anyway, we were just 10 minutes from there, flying time. You know, when I got to Casablanca, that didn't finish my trip. The next morning, they put me on a 4-engine DC. That was down, I think that was down in Nigeria. They flew me down to Nigeria. And you know, Africa's here and Central America's here. Well, I got down there that far. Then I got on the 4-engine job, and that was another 8-hour flight to Central America. And there, they were bringing back the C-47s that had been used in the bombing at the Battle of the Bulge. And so I got on the C-47 and we got out over the water, and the oil pressure dropped.
Oh no.
And pilot said, well, we gotta go back, get another plane. And we went back, landed. Well, I'm going out with a mechanic. I'm gonna help him pick out a good airplane some way, because I want to get back to the States.
It's gonna kick the tires.
We have
Check
bad
it
luck
out.
with airplanes.
I'm telling you.
But it happened. The mechanic told me, I was up in the cockpit with him, and he says these C-47s are worn out. He says, use them in the balls. And we're trying to get the troops back to the States with them. And so I got back to, what's the country east of us? Puerto Rico. I got into Puerto Rico. I got on another C-47. And then got on another C-47 and flew into Miami. And that pilot, he took us right straight down the beach there at Miami.
That was the first time you had been back in the United States since you left.
Oh, well, that was a beautiful sight. I loved it. And they put me there in the barracks at Homestead, and then put me on a train and back to Oklahoma City. And there was one station that was there in Arkansas. I had to go there. they wouldn't let me get out.
Yep, you said you were a little bit short of your time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the guys says, "You're in finance. Why are you getting out of finance?" Says, "We're in finance and can't get out." Well, I was going back to the War Department. They didn't know that.
So you went to Washington D.C. or just worked in?
No. I went home. I had 30 days leave before I went back to the War Department. Well, President Truman dropped the atomic bomb one time there in August. The Japs did not surrender. Well, Truman said, "We're going to bomb another atomic bomb on you." And he did. And the Japanese surrendered. And when he did that, that gave me enough points. I had the Bronze Star, which gave me enough points then to get out. So I never went back to the War Department.
That's good.
Oh my. The adventures. Oh my goodness.
And then you went to work after you got out.
Well, yeah, no. I went to college.
Okay.
I went to GI Bill, and back during the Depression days, like I said, I had a chance to get a scholarship in Colorado. But I got to thinking back, if I had taken that scholarship, I'd have been up in during the war.
Right.
I'd have probably got pulled out anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But my job in the Labor Department of Social Security was still available. I could have gone back to Washington, because they told me when I left, they said, "Your job will be available when you get back." And but I decided I wanted to go to college, and I graduated in 1940 in finance. And then I went to work. I went to work with Kerr McGee Oil Company. They had drilling rigs in the Gulf, and so
They were one of the first companies to drill in the Gulf, weren't they?
right. I was one of the first ones to take care of that rig that was drilling there. But that was Senator Kerr. He was part of Kerr
And
McGee
their headquarters, it was in Oklahoma City.
in the Browns building. Right. Well, I didn't stay there too long. I went to other several jobs, but I ended up going to the Tinker Air Force Base, and they had a job available, and I went in there as a price analyst, and we negotiated for repairs and parts. At that time, Tinker was overhauling the KC-35 planes. And when I was there, I got to see the general that bombed Japan with the K-24s,
Wow.
Doolittle.
Did you really?
I got to see General Doolittle, and I'll gotta back up. I got to see General Doolittle, and then I got to see General Eisenhower. I pulled up in a staff car behind General Eisenhower in Algiers, and he had a lady driver with him. And at that time, they were planning the war, or what they was going to do out of England. And I think he was meeting with Roosevelt and Stalin at that time. But I got to see the French general, the president of France, de Gaulle. He marched down the street there in Algiers with his troops, de Gaulle.
I think he was in exile, though, wasn't he? Was
More
he
or
in
less,
exile?
I think. Yeah, I don't. But he was there in Algiers, North Africa.
And Tinker is in Oklahoma City, and it's a huge base.
Midwest city is
Yeah.
east. Well, let me finish my story then. I stayed there at Tinker. I retired there. I don't know, I forget how old I was. Well, I stayed there 25 years.
Wow.
And when I got home, Oklahoma City, and I was enjoying my time off. Well, I got a call from FAA. That's located at Will Rogers. And the lady that called me at FAA says, we called Tinker and we were looking for a price analyst. And they gave us your name and telephone number. And the lady says, we need a price analyst here at FAA. And she said, well, it's going to be 6 months. And I said, well, I'm retired. I've been retired 2 years. I don't need another job. And she says, well, we want you to come out here. We got some other people that know you, and we want you to be out here, and we want to talk to you. And so I went out and talked to them. And FAA was a nice place there at Will Rogers Airport. And they talked me into taking the job at 6 months. Well, it was 14 years.
I was going to say, how long did it go?
I retired there. I
Ah.
was 81.
Oh my.
That's a long 6 months.
That's a
wasn't
long 6 months.
Yeah.
Mm.
it? And then you moved to Fort Worth. You came here how many years ago?
Yeah. Well, see that guy back up there? Where is he? He over there, Jonathan? That's one of my grandsons. I got 4 grandsons. Oh, no, I got 2 girls and 2 boys. and my daughter, she was in Oklahoma, and she married a doctor in Oklahoma City that was going to medical school. He was from Fort Worth.
Ah, that's how you ended up in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
Well, my daughter and Dr. Mayberry, he's a surgeon here in Fort Worth. And the 2 of them are going to church there in Oklahoma City. And Dr. Mayberry had graduated from the school there and getting ready to move back to Fort Worth. Well, he come by my house and he says, says, I want to marry your daughter. I've got another daughter too. And so I agreed. I said, that's okay with me.
For sure. Yeah.
And so they went back to Fort Worth, and his dad is a doctor too. He's got a clinic. And so Dr. Mayberry went right to work in his dad's clinic. Well, they started having kids. We had these 4 kids. And so my wife says, let's go to Fort Worth. Says, I want to be with the
That's
grandkids.
it. That's it. You got to be with the grandkids. I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm still here. My wife passed away after 2 years. My mouth is getting so dry.
Here's some water.
Yeah, there's some water.
So, you know, Bill, you went to Birchman Baptist Church before roll call started, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so Bill was one of so when roll call started in 2014, it started with 15 World War II veterans that Kevin Bolt wanted to take to lunch so they could visit and he could show appreciation. And Bill was one of those original 15 members of roll call. And as roll call started to get bigger and bigger and needed a place to go at one point, Bill said, I know a place, right? And then we ended up at Birchman because that's where Bill went to church. So the whole reason that we're at Birchman Baptist Church comes down to this man right here.
Right
And
here.
connecting us to the church and to Brenda and to all the wonderful people, Pastor Bob, and they have just been wonderful hosts for us for a long time.
Yes, we need to write a book about that.
We do.
We do.
We better get busy.
Yeah.
And you stay pretty busy now, don't you? I mean, you go a lot of places.
Yeah.
I was looking back at some pictures, and you know, you went to the ball game not long ago and was recognized on Father's Day,
Right.
and you got the cake at the base.
Yeah,
And-
I've been out there twice.
Yeah.
And, oh, I got another story to tell you.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it
You're
okay?
You're 103 years old.
I'm sure you got a
go over.
lot of stories.
Well, when I got down here to Fort Worth, I wasn't crippled. I could walk.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've made 2 trips to Normandy. Now, I want to tell you, I made these trips because I wanted to give those boys a salute. They that made those landings in Normandy and in Italy and in Pacific, there are the real heroes. And I wanted to get a chance to go see them and give them a salute. Even though they were buried down there, I wanted to give them to see what happened. And the first trip I made to Normandy, on Omaha Beach, they have a restaurant built over a German bunker. It was radio communications. Well, the French built this little hamburger stand over. Well, all of us that go to Normandy, we usually go there and get a hamburger. And the first trip, when I walked out, they had pictures and books of the war there in Normandy. Well, I had one, and he says, we want you to, they were pinup girls. Beautiful pinups. Gable, he says, I want you to autograph one of those pinup girls. And I picked out Donna Reed. She was in the movie at Pearl Harbor with Burt Lancaster. All that I had left autographed was just her face.
Oh my.
So I put Bill McIntyre, Staff Sergeant, and the date up there. And it's still there.
Is it
I'll
really?
be darned.
Now, my second trip, I walked out, you know. Well, when I got out there on that beach, there was a crowd of people. And there was a young lady holding up a cane like this. And I knew what that meant. And I went over to her. I said, "Where are you from?" And she says, "I'm from Ohio." And he says, "What are you going to do with this cane?" She says, "I'm going to put this cane in the museum for General Roosevelt. He was the son of FDR. General Roosevelt was on the first landing in Normandy. And his commander didn't want him to go, but he wanted to go with his troops. And this is all played out also in the Longest Day movie. If you've seen The Longest Day, he was
Henry Fonda played them.
he hung his cane up on one of those pipes in that battleship.
Mm-hmm.
But he was on the first wave, and that's what he took with him with that cane, and he was directing his troops. Well, he survived. He got off of the beach, up on that hill there, and it took 6 waves to get that beach, and well, the next month, July, and it's the same as my birthday, I think. You'll have to check that out. But General Roosevelt became sick. He got pneumonia. Well, the doctor said, "General, you're not going to make it." And I know he did not make it because I give him a salute at his cemetery at Normandy. He's buried there. And so I thanked that girl, and what had happened to that whole family, this was 75 years later that they'd held that cane.
Cane.
Wow.
That was his cane.
That was his cane. I've got pictures of it.
Wow.
That was his cane. That's live history. I made live history when I went there.
You are like.
Isn't that one of the roll call members who comes all the time? And he's got a group. He takes groups several times a year. He has a connection down there, and they take small groups, and they go through all these. And he's there right now. And in 2020, I think he said the earliest we can get another trip, because they're booked up either. I don't think it's next year. I think it's going to be early 2025. We're going to do a roll call specific group, but it's a small group. So once he gets more details, then we'll see who, and everyone, they'll have to pay for themselves, but at least an opportunity for roll call members to go and to do the Normandy tour with folks that have been doing it repeatedly and know all of the history.
New Orleans.
Yep.
To the World War II Museum.
Veterans.
Right.
Yes. Well, let me finish my story.
Okay.
When I walked back off of that beach, the museum people there said, we want you to participate in our ceremony. We do it at 6 o'clock every evening. We have 2 flagpoles, and we're going to lower the American flags. And we want you to participate in it. I was the only World War II veteran there.
I'll be darned. That's shocking.
And
Yeah.
so Jonathan's sister, Allison, was pushing me in this wheelchair. And she pushed me up there to that first wheel pole. And man, this is what I wanted. I wanted to give those boys a salute. Because the cemetery, the American cemetery, was all out there. And they started lowering the flag. And I didn't get up because my leg was hurt. I wanted to get up. Well, they got that flag down off the flagpole. They folded it up, and a big crowd was over there. And Allison, my granddaughter, moved me over to the next flagpole. And they started lowering that flag. And when it got about halfway down, I had to stand up and give those boys a salute. And they were playing the flag, playing the taps. Do you know how many notes are in the taps? In taps? How many notes?
No.
24. Well, I got to salute those guys and give them a salute because those boys that landed at that beach, they didn't have a chance.
No.
Ammunition and their rifles, and some of them drowned right there. And those landing ships, they pulled them, they didn't pull them up far enough. But anyway, the museum people there have got a beautiful museum. They got a movie theater there, and they got big pictures in there of Normandy. And they were really nice to me. They gave me 3 or 4 books of Normandy. And they took my picture, and so I'll remember that from now on. But, I've got another story.
You have some time?
I don't. I gotta get out there. I got a car coming.
We're about out of time for today. But
Okay.
We'll come over and do another interview.
I'll tell you about the story to New Orleans.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
Whenever I come over, we'll do that. But
Okay.
Have to
we've
look at some
enjoyed you
pictures,
being
too.
here. And you know, one of the people in roll call is Lorna.
Right.
And
Lauren is a great
has
volunteer.
been so good
Yeah.
at taking a real interest in our veterans that are
Yeah.
100 plus.
Yeah.
Because she takes you a lot of places. I think you go to eat dinner with Lorna and her mother, and then she goes and checks on Ernie all the time. He's
Right.
104
Right.
years old.
Mhm.
So, you know, we just, and she helped set all this up to get you here. And Jonathan, thank you for bringing him today. It's been a real honor and real privilege to have you here.
Oh, thank
And
you.
We just are really honored that you're our friend.
Well,
You're a great guy.
I'm glad to be here.
We just love you.
I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah.
Mary, no roll call this week or this month.
Right.
Next one's the 25th. of
25th of August. RSVP line should open about the 7th of August. So again, we'd like for the veterans to get the first crack at it, and then a few days later, the non-vets go ahead and do your RSVP. But we expect it's going to be another full one. Dan Roberts, Vietnam vet, will be our speaker, one of our members. So we'll get to hear his story.
And last week we had Patricia, one of the Battling Betties, and they put on a great.
It was
How was that deal?
It
Oh, it
was
was
good.
great.
Good.
Oh, it was a
Raised
lot of
some money
fun.
for roll call and had a good time
Yeah.
out there.
it went
the-
by like that. 3
Wow.
hours went by in a
We had
flash of an
had
eye.
the museum out there, had a lot of door prizes, and it went well.
Turned out good.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to having another Patricia. So
Yeah, it went very well.
Well, we met the first time at the Golden Corral. I was on the honor flight to Washington, D.C., and I met Kevin Boyd. Well, Kevin Boyd come to my,
he's the one that started the roll call.
Yeah.
well, that's what I want to tell you. Kevin come over and interviewed me, and he says, Bill, says, we want to start an organization of World War II veterans. And I said, well, that's great. So I started recruiting with my cap.
You did a good job.
And you know how many restaurants we went to, the barbecue place, and then
Hawaiian Falls,
Yeah.
Hawaiian Falls.
Hawaiian
Falls, and they didn't pay their property taxes, so they came, says you can't meet here anymore. And that's when I told Kevin, I says, let's go make an appointment with the Birchman Baptist Church. That's my church. I know Brenda, and she's a good cook, and we got a large gym, and we went to Brenda and called her and Robert, and we were making the veterans then pay $10, and we told Brenda, and Brenda said, well, that's okay with me, and she said it'd be an honor to have you guys. And so that's when it started. Well, I have so many veterans ask me, how did it get started?
That's
Right.
the way it got started.
Right. Yeah, and look at it today.
Yeah.
Did it today.
It's amazing.
We're out of time for today, Bill. We'll come and catch you later.
Okay.
Larry, thank you for having us. The bike drive, always remember that. Saturday at the Point,
Birthday
10
party.
o'clock.
Yep.
It's the 10th birthday of the Fort Worth Memories
Facebook.
Facebook group. So I'll be there and we'll have a good time.
Yep.
A lot of karaoke. Mary, I'll see you next week.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching Hometown Heroes. And this is our great guest, Bill McIntyre, 103
Great
years
having
old.
Well, thank you very much for. Do I get a copy of this?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. It's all
It's
over the
on-
world.
Online. We'll see y'all next week on Hometown Heroes.